Now, this is one person and he's very close to my heart. This primarily because as a student also, he never had these, यहाँ से MDes करने के बाद मुझे नौकरी करनी है, ये करनी है, वो करनी है. I mean, he was a person with free will, and it's good to see that he continues to remain so. Because I know a lot of people, even my own friends, who at one point of time wanted to, live a free life. But at some point, I see them wearing ties and getting into BMWs. I was like, "Kya ho gaya yaar tujhe?" So, But anyway, let's listen from you, Praveen.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a ride actually, because living a free life is not easy either. But I'll take you through the whole journey, of my journey of what happened.
That is something we have had a talk when you were a student.
Yeah, I remember having a lot of conversations with you around that. Yeah. In fact, post leaving my job, I remember coming and speaking to you as well. And but I'll touch upon all of that. I've had it as part of the presentation.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Cool. So let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So my talk is titled Work in Progress, because I personally feel there's really no end to work. I mean, work keeps going on. Because each work you do informs your next work. And okay, anyway, I'll touch upon that in my next slide. Also, beforehand, disclaimers, I live in Goa, so if there's no internet, please forgive me, I'll connect back soon. Okay, so getting down to work, right? So this word work, what does it really mean? I don't want to get too deeply philosophical about it, but essentially, if we break it down, it means there's something you want to do, like an experiment or an action, or you want to apply yourself to something. And then in the process of doing so, you observe, you learn, and you gain insights. And then those learnings and observations and insights you take back to your work and apply again. And that's a sort of cycle that keeps going on. And that essentially for me, if you look at it, is work. And that's my personal take on it. Everything's up for debate. And if you put this model of action, of doing with observation and learning, and this entire cycle together over a period of time, then you will essentially see that, okay, now what you have been doing, and because you have done it multiple times, and each time you're doing, you're learning something new. And essentially over a period of time, that becomes a skill. And this is how skills are developed. You put in time, you learn through applying yourself, and you develop different skills like sports, arts, science, even cooking, playing chess, and that also goes for design. What to expect in this talk? Well, of course, my journey as a designer, because design is a skill, and my skills have, at least I so like to believe that they have developed over a period of time. And I'll take you through that journey with all the work that I've done, not all of it, at least bits and pieces of work, and my observations and insights as we go along. And I'm hoping that this will help students, because I also tried putting in things which I wish I knew when I was starting off. But then again, everything is a journey and there's a time for everything. So moving on. Yeah, so that's essentially putting my entire work career into one page, so to say. It starts with schooling and then engineering, and then I worked for a couple of years at Accenture. Then I got placed in IIT Kanpur in this. That was a huge change. And if you see, there's this arrow here of my journey starting to go everywhere, because until then, things were quite linear. Although I tried doing things on my own, but things were quite linear. And formally getting into design education, it starts shaking things up for you, which is a great thing. And then I went on to, and then I was placed in Yahoo. post NDES, where I worked for an year and a half or close to 2 years. After which I I started freelancing as a designer, and then again at some point I also started making art. So if you look at this green line below, sorry if this looks too complicated, but I was just playing around. If you look this green line below, if it's color, if you color coordinate that journey with the colors that are on each of these as parts of my journey. So schooling and engineering takes most of the time in my 30 so years of life. And then there was 2 years of Accenture and 2 years of MDes. Now, art happened for me right in schooling. Uh, and I just as a process, this entire process of putting my entire journey together, I went through lots of archives of my work, which was quite interesting as a retrospect. So I'll share with you some work I started doing at school. Like these were things I would do in my uh, in my notebooks. I wouldn't go to school most of the times. My parents were fine with me not going to school. I've been lucky that way, and I would spend time making art. Uh, and eventually, there was an art teacher, which I was very fortunate to have. And then these were all my own experiments in school as I was going along. And this happened over a period of 3 years. I started in 8th class, actually painting and learning under him. And then things went along, and things I thought were going good, and I was learning things. And this painting you see here is out of my imagination. So I'm still quite surprised when I look back at these, that I had done this when I was in school. Well, quickly jumping into my learnings, observations, and insights at a young age. But uh, when I was painting, I found this no sense of time and space. Like I was totally involved in what I was doing, and this was my first experience with doing something like that. And I find myself quite privileged to have experienced something like that at a young age, because it leaves an impression on you where you realize that what you're doing is something you're enjoying doing, and while you're enjoying doing it, you're also learning. So this is very contradictory to what happens in schools in general, where learning becomes effort, where things become work. So getting a taste of this was very nice at a young age. uh, and I still remember my teacher back then. My art teacher used to say, if you're starting something, finish it. So that's something that also stuck with me. So no matter how bad things are going in terms of what I'm doing, I at least make sure to finish it. So that stuck with me as a discipline. And if you have a well-experienced teacher who knows what he's doing, then any subject can be interesting, be it maths or physics or science or even construction. Uh, so really learning can be very interesting in general. So these were my key observations and insights. Then after my engineering in computer science, well, I continued making some art here and there. And then eventually I got placed at Accenture as a software tester. This was the first time I mean, sorry to put this, but I felt like sheep, because there's so many of us working together, and and we are sort of told what is to be done, and you are told what is to be done, and that is what you keep going on doing through the day. So it was sort of like being part of a mental labor, the way you have physical labor, part of being a process which involves mental labor, and you're part of, you have this small piece of code that you're looking at and you're testing and trying to break the code so that you can look for bugs and send it back to the development team so they can fix it, right? And that's essentially what you're doing. And you don't even know where this product fits, what it does, or you have no control over how it looks or how it works. So you're playing that small role in a corporate. And by night, I would come back and I would do my own thing. And these were things I would end up doing. And I had a computer by then, so I was trying to take my art digitally and trying to make a living, using what I know as a skill, and so that I can do more of it. So these were online competitions I would take part in, and lots of logos I designed, websites I tried designing, and 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 all this happened while simultaneously doing a day job. Uh, key observations, I joined Accenture in 2008, and I'd seen the recession happening. It was a very interesting phase because that tells you a lot about an organization when suddenly there is a panic situation, and how even a big corporate or an MNC downsizes, and then you understand your own place in a corporate setting and what you actually mean. And corporates actually mean business. Uh, and as an individual, you are only part of a process, and the individual doesn't really stand out from a corporate point of view. But again, uh, I also got to know about examinations like SEED and NID. So here's something interesting I did. I hustled my way around. I opted out of the project I was working in, and I told one of my friends to swipe my card every day, and I took a 2 month off. And in those 2 months, I prepared for my exams. And that's how essentially I prepared for SEED and NID, and then I eventually got through IIT Kanpur. Uh, Again, the mental labor part, I touched upon it. So these were my key learnings of being in Accenture. Not a very nice experience. But then I was happy that finally I got placed in something more creative and masters in design. I really didn't know what to expect. Uh, but first, like my first revelation was that we do not have any books, and there is not a lot of theoretical knowledge, and that was great for someone who's coming from a schooling education to engineering, where there's a lot of theory you read and you don't know what you're really applying it for, and it really doesn't make sense while you're learning all of that, right? Suddenly things start making sense, like you're given so many assignments and you're working it out with all your classmates and batchmates, and then you're seeing how things apply in actual projects. And then you realize that playing Baraka. Baraka is a lovely film, and it just blew my mind out watching that film. Uh, and while I was also on campus, I continued doing work with. So this is a logo I did for a bachelor student who wanted to set up his own company. It was nice working with him because I ended up working with him in the future as well when he set up his own company. So we'll connect that dot. I also worked for the Tech Fest in IIT called Tech Riti. And this was nice too because the people I met during this time, uh, all the bachelor students, I'm somewhere more or less still in touch with them, and these dots sort of connect, and I've worked with them later too. So we'll get to that. Uh, Quick observations, learnings, insights. Foundations in design thinking. So, so up until now, I thought creativity was like a personal pursuit where I could tell I, I had the power as a creative person to say or make things look or work, and it brought the user into focus, and in a very logical way. Uh, and in a very logical way, it all made sense. We had these classes by Professor Junki Ang, where she was a visiting faculty, and I remember ending up taking her workshop twice, just to understand this, because this is a great skill, and these are foundations in design thinking that I still apply and carry. Learning by doing. Again, as many projects as you put yourself in, you're learning, and then you're doing, and you're learning and doing. You take and also another insight was to take interest in other electives other than just design. I took up an elective in marketing by Professor Jayanta Chatterjee, and it was really good. And IIT is a great place to take up other electives other than design, which to just give yourself that exposure. And while you're at IIT, of course, you have lots of fun. And I also ended up traveling a lot. And if you can also be involved with the student community there are loads of clubs, lots of activity happening. But unfortunately, I know you're not on the campus right now, but whenever you will be. Okay, then later I got placed in Yahoo. Great team, great work culture. For the first time, I could wear shorts and walk into office. I could have also worked from home if I wanted to. There was lots to learn for me, and I was also earning pretty well. So a nice start. This was something that I was working on back in Accenture. This is called Right Media. So this was a B2B application, and if you look at it, it looks like a very complex product. And this was an entire redesign effort that we were trying to do back then. So Right Media Exchange was a company that Yahoo had acquired, and it was a legacy product. So there were already users on it who have been using it for a while. And even if it was difficult, they found their way around using it. So it was a very difficult product in that sense that we had to manage what while redesigning it, keeping in mind the ways that they are adapted to it. Because and that's very important, because if you end up making huge changes, people who are paid to work on these products on a daily basis will have a learning curve to go through. And if they have a learning curve to go through, which means business is freezing. And if business is freezing in that time, that means you're not making as much profit as a company. So all of this sort of trickles down. And it was nice to understand things like that and part of along with my entire team. So a lot of hand holding that I was taken through to understand, little tiny details of interaction design, which helped me a great deal in terms of a skill. So 2 years of this was a lot of learning for me. Again, a lot of learning in terms of interaction design, and this is where I saw design being applied as a process, more like an assembly line. Like, so if you actually put design as a process, it essentially boils down to starting with research. Then you take that research, you synthesize that research. Based on that research and those data points, you ideate. And once you have ideated, you have multiple ideas out of which you narrow down and you create a prototype. And then you're still hypothesizing, right? You created a prototype, so then you test it. So you bring users back into the entire process, you test it, and then you iterate it. So you take it through multiple rounds of testing and iteration till you know that the product is in a stable state to launch. And then you forward it to a UI designer who then creates a beautiful visual around it, which is then forwarded to the tech team, who then takes it forward to build the product. So this was essentially the entire process that I could witness firsthand. And personally, I was part of. There was a research team in the US who would do all the research. We would dial into the calls and shadow them and try to listen to them on calls. Then we would in India we would then pick up that user research and come up with ideas and prototype and the rest. But I also sense that I wanted to work on a more on a B2C product. Uh, and that was a little hard to do back then because Yahoo also was going through a transition. Marissa Mayer had just come in as a CEO, and a lot of things were changing. In fact, all the work that we put in Right Media Exchange suddenly got scrapped off because now there is new leadership and there's new thinking, and they think and they have a different vision, and they think everything should be streamlined in a different way. So that was also a very interesting experience for me to witness, because you sort of I sort of understood what a corporate structure feels like. Largely, a lot of decisions are driven by profit, and that is when, because we were driven by profit, we were also coming up with all sorts of ideas. At least not us, at least the design team in the US, of endless scrolls, so that we could increase user engagement. And if you increase user engagement, then you can show ads in between, and if you're showing ads, then you're making profits. So that's essentially how the entire economic model of the corporate works, at least in digital products, largely. And things move slow because there is so much of hierarchy, and if you make a decision, it has to be approved on multiple levels in order for you to push it out. And then there's a hierarchy, of course, because hierarchy essentially ensures a huge corporation works smoothly. uh, and that also made me aware that design as a skill is a byproduct of the industrial age. Uh, so basically, obviously, human beings have been hunter gatherers for a long time and went through a lot of different ages, and eventually we ended up in the industrial revolution about 300 years back, and that's hardly anything when you compare to the whole. lifespan of human evolution. Just 300 years back, we have the Industrial Revolution, and then a bunch of people form, uh, make education reforms, and the education system is formed. And education system is essentially formed to fuel workforce into the industrial age, into industries. And eventually down the lane, they realized that, okay, just pure engineering isn't cutting the deal. Great design helps sell products better, and great design. And then later it also developed into design thinking, where we start putting the user first. I think a lot of everyone covered these topics in the past, so I'll not get more into these details. So this sort of got me thinking, okay, so everything that I've been doing until now, like schooling to college to corporate, then to IIT to Yahoo, has been a part of a system that has been designed for me to go work in a corporate entity. And that's something that I started having problems with when I was working. Also, the fact that you have to ask for leaves before you want to go on a holiday. You cannot live on impulse. I mean, at least if I want to, travel somewhere, I would want to do that right now. And these were thoughts that were happening to me back then. So eventually, I left my job and started traveling, and without any plan. So I saw what was happening in a corporate, things that I was not particularly happy with, and I thought, okay, this is not something that I'm happy with. Let me just drop out and see where things go, uh, purely as an experiment, purely as an experiment. And that is when I also met Satyaki sir, and he pointed me to. I thought I'll take up art again, and he pointed me to Shantiniketan, and I went and spoke to a professor there, and he pointed me out to more resources that I came back and mentally chewed on and stuff like that. And then I also traveled a lot. Uh, Traveled to Himachal, traveled to Banaras, traveled very randomly. Uh, and in traveling, and traveling can be expensive sometimes because you're traveling, even if you're staying in a cheap place, you're still spending money every day. So eventually I was running out of money, and I thought, okay, it's time to get back to work. And just when I thought so, work came my way, and someone that I was working with at Yahoo recommended my name to another person who was founding his company right then, and they were looking for UI designers. So they put me in touch, and then thus began my freelance career. So to quickly put what it means to freelance is that you're essentially dealing with uncertainty, because then there's sometimes work, there's no work. Not all clients pay equally. Each client is different. So and each client comes with a different team. So each team is different, and you're working with each team. So essentially a lot of learning curve in that way. Also, as a freelancer, at least for me, I had a lot of time. So both of those things came with being a freelancer for me. And also, I thought I can, with my skills in Yahoo and what I've learned at IIT Kanpur design, I thought maybe I can be of some use to the startup world. Also because they are low on budgets. So because they are low on budgets, they are happy to have a designer. And I wasn't going to get paid as much as I was going to pay in Yahoo, but this was still an opportunity for me to design a B2C product from scratch. So there was something in it for me to take away as well. So I took a pay cut, got myself onto the first project, uh, which is Help Post. So in my freelance career, I worked with four startups. First one's Help Post, then there's Bigzilla, then there's Let's Change, and now currently I'm working with Evolving. So working with Help Post, uh, this was the brief. Design a platform where people can ask for help, and people can also offer solutions. So this was a crowdsourced social media platform where if someone's looking for something, they quickly get onto the platform and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And in the vicinity, if there's someone who perhaps can point you out to some information or some contact or some job, then they'll put you in touch. And that's essentially was the idea. So this was the brief. And for the first time, I was faced with a blank canvas. So up until now in Yahoo, I had worked on legacy products which had already been built, products where there were a lot of people working on one product. And in this one, I had just a brief and a blank canvas. And this entire process that you see below, research, ideation, prototyping, testing, iteration, and UI, was something I had to undertake all on my own, because as a startup, they couldn't afford a researcher to hire a researcher separately or a UI designer separately. And at the same time, the client also doesn't have all the clarity all the time. So always. So it was also part of my work, part of my process to sit with the client, understand his vision, uh, try working out his vision, uh, thinking through loopholes, uh, being a devil's advocate, brainstorming, and you are essentially developing an idea that the client has from ground up. And while you're doing it, because this was a platform around health, you start thinking of things like, what does actually help me? Are there other products who are in the space? You start studying other products. And then you start also questioning user motivations. Why? Okay, someone wants help, so they will come onto the platform, but what's the incentive for someone who is offering help? I mean, essentially, what should be his incentive? And how do you motivate those users to come onto the product and offer help? So thinking of all these things and then eventually summing it all down to a prototype and then testing it and then iterating it was a huge process. And this is something that I had not foreseen before I got into it. But I'm glad I got into it and saw through it. And this is where what my art professor, when I was in school, said that if you started something, finish it off, really helped, because initially when you're starting off any project, it's quite confusing. Uh, it's quite hazy and you're essentially lost. So you end up talking to all the stakeholders and you gather more information, and the more information you gather, the more clarity you have, and the more clarity you have, that clarity sort of dictates what the design will be. So that was a great revelation to have at HealthPost. uh, okay, so here are some screens from that design. I'm also showing you these screens. It was nice to see them. uh, I find them quite dated, the UI, but that's also essentially part of the skill. It keeps improving. Uh, so we're thinking of all these little details, all the different kind of help that people can seek, and if there's someone online, then they can show up on the right side. And we're thinking of all these details, designing all these little cards, designing profile pages so that people can quickly go ask questions, designing onboarding experiences. And this also got me to think of aspects of the product that I never thought was a designer's responsibility, like designing the settings page. And you're thinking, oh, now I also have to design the settings page. And what do settings page actually include? And then you realize, wow, designing a product is a huge undertaking, but all in all, a worthwhile experience. So observation, first observation, that design is responsibility. It's because there's someone who's paying for it, and if there's someone paying for it in a capitalistic world, they are expecting returns, and more returns than what you're paid, what you're being paid for, right? So that way you add value as a designer. And so design is responsibility that way. And also because they are hiring tech, and the tech is going to follow, the tech team is going to follow the designs that you are going to give them. And tech means, investing in tech means investing a lot of money, right? So your designs better be good, because revisions in design after they have been built is a lot more expensive than, say, tweaking a wireframe. So so that was one big learning. Second was that this product eventually failed, and it failed like in not more than a year and a half, because that's around when Facebook came up with something called Facebook groups, and 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 as a marketing activity, we also took help posts to Facebook groups. So there are help post groups which are still active. But then because of Facebook groups and the way Facebook is designed, right, people are habituated to come to it every day. So essentially the groups and the entire idea took off in a Facebook group, but we saw very less traction coming to the product itself. And that was a huge challenge for us. And with Facebook coming with Facebook groups, that sort of ate away into the market that we were trying to build here. So changes in tech can make a product obsolete. So that was another learning. And another learning was that mobile is here. So even when I was designing in Yahoo, I was essentially designing B2B products. So we are designing desktop applications, right? Desktop products. And now suddenly when I started Headpost, this was in 2015 or 16, the mobile just took over everything. And I made the mistake of uh, designing everything in a desktop mode. And this was another setback for us. We did not have a mobile experience ready. So these were all good learnings, nice failures to have, nice learnings to take away from. And then the product failed. And uh, after this, again, I had a lot of time. I moved to Hyderabad. I was doing other things. I had designed graphics for Pinkathon, which is run by Milan Soman for their daily marathon. I was taking up all kinds of odd jobs, just keeping myself afloat. When suddenly I got a call from someone I designed something for back in my master's for, and he said, "Okay, we are designing a marketplace for buying and selling art." And that was great. I already had an inclination in art. That's something I dropped off back in school and just was doing it on and off here and there. And to get an offer to design a product in art was really exciting because then I thought this would give me exposure into another industry, which was nice. So I immediately said yes and I moved to Gurgaon. Uh, and this is what we built. I do not want to take you through, I'll take you through the entire process, but there's a lot lengthy process, but for the sake of time, I'll just cut it short down to a part of the interaction that we had designed for, for Bitzvilla. Yeah, so this was a walkthrough design for this art piece. One of the challenges of, again, let me take you through my observation, learnings, and insights. So this is where I realized how crucial research actually is. Uh, the people I was designing for, all very smart people, but they were largely numbers people. They were thinking numbers and they were thinking, how does the whole business model work? And that's what they were essentially doing. And my role in this as a designer was essentially to just design a e-commerce portal for art. But having come from, I mean, I'm someone who has done art in the past. I know that there's more to art than just that. So I start researching about art. I start going to galleries in Delhi. I start meeting curators. I meet collectors. I go to art openings, art exhibitions. I meet artists, and I'm just striking up these conversations with all of them. I'm trying to understand this entire ecosystem in which the art business actually works, right? So 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 there were many interesting insights, and all those interesting insights also carried down to art product, uh, where people who are essentially viewing a piece of art, let's say for the 36 by 24 inches frame, right? And it's a piece of art, and if you are trying to move that onto a digital platform, you are making a huge compromise on the experience that that art has to offer. So one of the challenges for me as a UI designer that I took over was how can we not compromise on that experience and still give people those tiny little details of looking at those strokes that are on an artwork through a digital platform. So all these sort of details. Also, the fact that as buyers, most of the time their interest is, and that's quite sad. Most of the time, their interest is not particularly in art. And this is not all the cases. There are also buyers who really buy only because they love a piece of art or an artist. But there are a lot of buyers who are buying a piece of art and then they think, oh, how is this going to look on my wall, right? And that essentially informed my next decision in my UI, where you have the select frame option below, and then you can change the background on which the art piece is, and look and see how this art piece looks like on your wall. And every tiny little detail which is on this page is there for a reason, and each of this is informed by the research that has happened and the insights that you have from that research. uh, and another interesting insight was that art as an industry is an existing industry, and there's a way things work, right? So it was interesting to understand that our product initially we thought would disrupt the art market, but as we got to know more about it, it humbled us down to know that okay, there are only a few people who have access to most of the good art in the country, right? And they are essentially controlling all the art markets in India, and they are the ones who have a network of HNIs who are buying this art and over a period of time evaluating and raising the valuation of each piece, and that's the entire business of art, right? You understand that, okay, as a startup, you're not here to disrupt, you're here to include. And as a tech startup, how can you then add more power to existing art galleries who then have access to great artists, right? So that was a good experience. Uh, Again, this startup failed too because one fine day we blew up all our money over marketing, and then we saw did not see more investment come in. So that was a nice experience. That startup has multiple partners. There is marketing happening, there is business development happening, there is sales happening, and then there's design happening, there's tech happening, right? There's PR happening. Now, even if one of them screws up, or something, one wheel gets punctured, everything can go down. All the effort that we are putting can just go down, and it can go down overnight. And a startup is only as good as the people who are working for it. So no matter how great your ideas are, if the people in the startup don't buy it, then your ideas aren't going to fly out. So that was also interesting. So post that, I started not only looking for great projects, but I also started looking for who is actually working on these products, because it is those people who and their attitude which will actually ensure the success of a work. Then after the failure of Bidzilla, I moved on, and again I had more time in that time, and then Let's Change happened. And Let's Change was a product which already was existing for a couple of years. It is a tech for good platform. The the brief was design a product that connects people with non-profits and does drive donations, right? So they already had a digital platform. It was quite rudimentary. They were not driving a lot of donations on the platform. And that is when, uh, again, this is one of the guys I met when I was doing my master's in IIT Kanpur. And he was leading Let's Change. And then he got to know that I was in Gurgaon. And then we ended up meeting one evening. And then we eventually decided, let's explore if I can design for Let's Change. And that's essentially how this took off. So up until now, I haven't designed any portfolios of any of my work, right? So that was quite interesting. Okay, so Let's Change was a tech for good. Then I came in, we developed an entire architecture for the product. What are the different ways we can drive donations? And then obviously, uh, people when they're donating online, there is always this matter of aspect of trust. That was the biggest issue in Let's Change. That why would I donate to an NGO which I really do not know about? So that was another challenge of how do we really get people, like-minded people, to donate for causes that are like-minded to them, while building trust, right? and leveraging on that. So that was the entire brief as I understood it. So there you go. So this was the redesign of the product, and this time I made sure to design also for mobile and mobile first. Uh, and this was interesting. So this was a redesign. Everything is thought through. You put things like this person donated so much to this foundation, and these are all things you're doing to sort of say that okay, hey, other people are also donating, so this is a trustworthy platform. So these are all sort of hacks. As a UI designer, you start building in to build trust in the entire experience. Uh, we were also funded by somebody by a billionaire. So he was actually funding the entire product, and he essentially knew that this was a tech for good platform, and that they did not want anything out of it. So it was very important to call this out to users that 0% of the fee is what we are keeping as a company, and everything that you're donating is directly going to the non-profits and the cause. I had also designed cards for creating campaigns, cards for NGOs, cards for donations that NGOs are looking for. Well, each of these products, again, we can go into great detail and I can explain to you everything, but in the interest of time, I'm not getting into it. I also propose an idea that usually in NGOs and most of these sectors, what you see is you see a lot of sad stories, and 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 a lot of people are trying to capitalize on that sadness and of the fact that there's someone going through misery, and then you show a picture of them going through the misery, and then you say, okay, donate this much, and that's as a as a as a visual designer or a product designer, I did not want to take that route. So I made a proposal that can we do something different? And I made some initial experiments and I said, can we explore clay iconography and clay symbolism? Because clay also gives you that feeling of being playful while reducing the entire load of a platform like a giving platform, because you're seeing a lot of sad stuff on it, right? At the same time, making you feel more happy. And if you are in that state of mind, there are more possibilities of you connecting to an NGO and thus making a donation. So we ended up creating a lot of these kind of illustrations for different causes like education, then women empowerment, then environment, and stuff like that. And I did a lot of bad work in this as well, and that's all right. I look back at it and laugh, but still, I saw through it, and this was a interesting project that I saw to completion. Uh, One of the interesting facts in this was that the product was already on for a couple of years. So they had a team dedicated to talk to NGOs, dedicated to talk to donors. So this was a great starting point for research. And not all the times, all startups, because they might be tight on budgets, uh, have uh, have budgets for research, and they are more tight on timeline. So this was an easy way for me to cut through my research and learn through what people already knew within the startup. And I learned that there was so much I could learn just talking to the NGO and donation support team. So that was a good insight. Uh, Propose ideas and make them work, like the whole entire clay iconography thing. Even if it's partially successful, I'd made a proposal and they were happy for my initiative, and I was sanctioned a certain budget for that. And then I saw it through, which was interesting, and I had my own learnings through it. So if you're part of a product and if you're working anywhere, make sure to propose ideas, be more proactive, and then see them through. Uh, this was the first time I saw some success in terms of what I was doing with product design. Uh, Let's Change was raising on an average of about 2 to 3 crores of donations every year. But with the redesign, for the first time in that year, we raised about 15 crores in donations. And that was a huge win. And that we saw consistently henceforth. And later, Let's Change as a product was also acquired by Give India Foundation. And now you will see Let's Change. If you go to Let's Change.org, there's a lot that Give India Foundation and Let's Change have done together. So that was a nice one for me to have. Now, also at around this time, because as a freelancer, you have a lot of time, right? I started digging into other stuff. I started watching a lot of documentaries. I started digging into what old masters have done, their works, art, and stuff like that. And then because you have a lot of time, you also have a lot of questions. And because you have a lot of questions and you have time, right, you have the leisure of actually digging into them, right? So that is, I feel, one of the privileges of being a freelance developer. Uh, so I started understanding how does the brain work, how does the brain function, and there was this very interesting experiment that I came across. I just want to do a quick time check. I hope we are not running out on time, or is it okay to continue? Anyone?
That's okay. That's okay, Praveen.
Yeah.
You
Okay. Cool.
can
Great.
another 10 minutes. Yeah.
Great. Right. So yeah. So this very interesting experiment is something I want to point out because this also had an influence on my work. Uh, there was this team of researchers who were researching the effect of music on the human brain, and they took different genres of music, not genres of music, but different musics with different emotions, and they took it to a very remote tribe in Africa who do not where even radio is not accessible. They do not have any clue of radio or any clue of what music is. And then they played each of this music tracks and they asked them what do they feel. And close to 98% of those people in the tribe could recognize each music and connect it with an emotion, right? And that was for me very fascinating because it told me something about our human brain, which where there is a lot that the human brain has evolved over millennium that it already has, and there is a listening faculty in the brain, and that already identifies things, right? And that does not need training, it does not need schooling, right? It's already ingrained. So that was very insightful for me, and I wondered, what is beauty then? Is there a framework for beauty, right? uh, for visual arts, and that's something that i I started digging into. Then I looked at things which are like most beautiful art, like things in nature, to studying artists' works. Like this is a work I really detailedly studied on, dividing it into grids and seeing how the artist has broken it all down into a composition, and then you see this sort of pattern emerge. Uh, uh, in great work, at least in great visual work. And then as I was chewing on to this pattern of this idea of how to divide space, composition, with what I knew, little I knew about color and everything in my childhood doing painting, right? I started experimenting, and this was one of the first things I made sitting at my balcony in Gurgaon. There was this lamp hanging, and I thought, wow, this is very interesting. Uh, Good composition leads to good design, and this was very interesting for me to chew on. And then I picked something else up. There was this place I used to go drink chai at, and there was this water tanker. I thought, can I create a good composition for a mundane subject like this? And then I made this. Then Gurgaon, a lot of heavy construction was going on. So then I started experimenting more, started getting into more details, and then more work started coming out. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And not just more work started coming out, I also started putting it up on Instagram, and I started seeing more people liking what I'm putting on it. So I was like, okay, there is something in it that actually works. It was decent validation for my work. And at that point, I shut everything down and moved to Goa because my project with Let's Change was also done. I had some money with me, and back then my partner was also like, "Okay, what are we really doing in Gurgaon other than working? There's really not much the city has to offer. Let's experiment." And then we moved to Goa. This was about 3 years back. So I found myself with having no work again, settling in a new place, and having no work, settling in a new place, and lots of time. So I have art to give me company. And then I continue. creating more art. And because you're in a new place like Goa, there is so much of a culture to actually take in when you're living in, as opposed to when you're traveling a place as a tourist. It's a completely different ballgame. So as someone who's living in Goa, I could see a very different side of the place. So this is Mapusa market, where a lot of villagers, and this has been a tradition since long, Mapusa is known for it. A lot of villagers come from Belgaum, which is in Karnataka, a lot of neighboring cities, also other villagers in Goa, and they come here and they used to sell their produce. That was what Mapusa market was about. So I tried capturing that in these works. Uh, and then and then another series came about, which was Go on the Surface. And I'm not even showing you all my work, but I just quickly skimmed through all of these. This was another series that I did around Goa, Go on the Surface, uh, just looking at daily life happening in local Goa. And these were all interesting for me because as a tourist, one never really gets to see another side of a city. And this was all fascinating for me. So I thought, okay, let me just communicate what is fascinating for me through this medium, right? And then later, my work started getting more recognition, and there were a couple of mentions in a travel magazine, then the local magazines, and then I was actually started, I was given commissions for this work. So these were works. I had done a series of 13 artworks. These are works I've done for a boutique hotel in a village called Asaga, and it's an old Porto villa that they actually took up and renovated. And there were about 13 rooms, and they wanted one artwork for each room. So that was a nice assignment I took up. So this is the Susegado life of Goa that I tried putting it together. Uh, and then of course there are the beaches, and each beach has its own character. So I essentially found myself doing a lot of this with my time, while eating away into all the money that I had saved up after my last project. So that was really nice. And then this started making then this started selling in stores. I sold these works at flea markets. By now I must have sold about 250 prints of all these works, and I have sold these works in galleries. Absolute Vodka commissioned me pieces. Unfortunately, I can't show you those works. I've created 5 works for them, which would go on their bottle. And then I designed for illustrations for research papers, like lots of work, and good fun. So just and coming back to the title of the talk, work in progress, where you're putting in work and you're learning, and you're putting in work and you're learning. All of that stats might not look like it's adding up, but if you're consistent with it for a while, you'll see that eventually things start shaping up. And that was a great revelation for me. And that's when the fourth product that I'm also currently working on came in, Evolve Inc. I'm having a great time working with it. So this was a brief for it. Mental health issues are on a rise. Over 51% of Indian working population is stressed. Can we build a product to address this? Right? I'll not go too much into detail, but a lot of working around wireframes. Again, building product from scratch also means talking to the founder, talking his understanding of the industry, reading things up about mental health, understanding how can you what psychology does, how what neuroscience says. How do you take all of these learnings into a product while making it still scalable, because it's a startup. They do not have to move budgets. So lot of complex problems you're working with. Uh, and eventually it all has to boil down to a simple solution, right? One really doesn't look at all the complex work that's going down behind it. It all has to boil down to something very simple. And this is what we came down to. And this product we launched about 2 months back. We are already seeing a lot of good reviews on it. We already have seen about 2,000 unique users come in September. We are involving users at every stage of the product. And all the learnings that I've had and all the mistakes that I've made in the past are all adding up. And all the learnings are coming together to shape up this product. And also, not just that, also what I'm doing on my art and illustration basis, I have also taken that into this product. So if you're looking at it, all these illustrations are something that I've designed, and also includes the branding of the product. So all of this has been thought through, right? And then we have thought through journeys and how each journey is going to be interactive. so as to simulate an experience of talking to a psychologist and helping you reflect. Well, obviously, tech can never replace physical. Uh, uh, what physically being together can facilitate. But then you try, right? And you figure ways out. So that has been evolved. These have been my learnings. Involve users at every single stage. The more the users you involve, the better the learnings are. Test, iterate. Build the prototype as fast as you can. Iterate it as many times as you can till you reach a till you get stable feedback. Uh, there is a longer human history, which is very long, and all of that affects who we are. And all of that has shaped the world that we live in. So these were all interesting insights to have. Also, there were interesting insights around neuroscience. And this was around when I was digging into neuroscience and understanding how dopamine works and how rewards work and how variable rewards work. And there's this very good book called Behave by Robert Spolonsky. And and the more I dug into it, I realized wow, neuroscience has actually discovered a lot, and they're very interesting revelations to me. And as a human-centered design, it's important not only to understand a human in context of the product, but it's also nice to just step back and understand who a human in general is, right? Um, and neuroscience can give a good answer to that. Psychology can give, understanding your own self also can give insights into who human beings are. And it also got me to understand how technology is made addictive. And this is the conversation largely the tech world is having of late. I mean, these conversations have been having for a while, but this is a conversation that has been put on a public platform very recently by Social Dilemma, right? And I could see how products can manipulate by rewards and variable rewards. And there's also another book called Hooked, right? And when you put all this into perspective with your understanding how humans have evolved in a tribe, uh, you start seeing through what largely a lot of products in this world are doing right now. What Instagram is doing, what chess.com is doing, how these products hook you, and what this is also leading, unfortunately, is a lot of people hooked onto uh, the digital platform for an instant relief. And that is also driving a lot of depression rates, right? So you start connecting all these dots, and that was quite interesting for me to see. And this is an ongoing process, but this is where I am. And I'll leave this conversation with something I was designing just yesterday. Uh, this is not out anywhere, and this is you're getting the first look. And again, designing multiple variations to see what color combinations work. Just trying to give you insight into how process works, right? This is something that I've been doing for my village that I'm living in called Para, Maka Naka development, which means we don't want development. Yeah, that's it.
Quite a refreshing experience, Praveen.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
It's very nice to see the artworks. And yeah, so a couple of things that I feel also important for the students in general. Um, you know, many times I myself have been telling students to kind of get onto, rather than creating jobs, seeking jobs, create jobs, and all those kind of things, which I keep telling people. There are a lot of students who have got into startups and all that, not taking up jobs. But especially for the first year students who are attending this talk, it's very important for them to. And one of the reasons for organizing these sessions were also to get them a realistic picture of how things are going to be. So this actually gives them a good idea of how things are. Before you actually get onto freelance or get onto starting something, there are challenges, and you should be aware of that. That's
Absolutely.
something which is you've put things very nicely. Um, As far as your artworks are concerned, they're really nice. If you get an opportunity, just actually, yeah, what you should do is just go to Shatrupa's Facebook page, find out Shubhobroto Roy Chaudhary,
Okay.
uh, Shubho, SUVO or Shubhobroto Roy Chaudhary. He was, I mean, we were together in Shantiniketan. He's now a faculty at SRFTI Kolkata, Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute.
Right.
After a long time, I saw his paintings, and they were very refreshing experience again.
Right.
So definitely check out his works. Also look for the works of Tom Vattakuri.
Tom Vattakuri.
Yeah, he's in Trivandrum right now, but you'll find all these people in Chatrupa's Facebook page.
Sure. Sure.
Because I keep seeing their works and really enjoy seeing their works.
Right.
You must have seen or read John Burge's Ways of Seeing, right?
I have been trying to get a hand on the book, but I yes, I've gone through excerpts from the book. Really
Okay.
nice. Yeah.
But there's also on YouTube, you'll find his book in the form of a video in 3 volumes.
I did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that.
More interestingly, what I found very recently is that it's so John Berger has been interviewed again after so many years. So the book, when he
Interesting.
wrote, the film that was done when he was young, and after
Right.
like 40 years with white hair,
Right.
people have got back to him, and there's a
Right.
1 hour long documentary where again he kind of recalls all his experiences then. So
Right.
that was really a very nice experience. So since you are doing your research in this domain, I would recommend you should watch this.
Sure. The ways of seeing. I know what you're saying. That the guy with the he
John,
paints in front of the yeah. Right. Interesting. Sure. I'll give it a look.
so it's open for questions from people. You already have 2 questions, I think. Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah.
So there's a question from Nikhilesh Tripathi. It says, do you ever feel the lack of energy or motivation because of working alone? Do you ever feel the lack of drive force and the design environment we get when working in a team?
Yeah. Uh, I have been working with teams. Like if you look at it, all the products that I've been designing are essentially you are designing in teams. Even if I'm designing alone, it doesn't mean that I'm seeing through the entire process all by myself. I'm involving other people in the product. I'm involving the CEO. I'm involving other leaderships which are part of the product, involving marketing. And every time I have one page ready, I take it to them, and then we're all sitting, we're all discussing. So design can never happen in silos. It has to happen in a group. But when it comes to art is a more alone process. But I also end up taking it to my partner or my friends and quickly showing them and telling them, what do you feel? And then they tell me what they feel, and then I also make those changes. So I try involving as many people as you can. Do you ever feel the lack of drive force and the design environment we get when working in a team? Hmm. No, the drive force for me is the fact that someone is giving me a budget and a responsibility and paying me to create a product. So essentially what has happened is they're also paying for me to learn, right? I'm also learning and getting paid for it. So I have great fun doing it while doing good work for them. So there's never a lack of any driving force for me. Yes, of course there are bad days and there's something nothing you do, but that's all right. That's part of life.
So Praveen,
Amazing
before
insight.
I go to
Yeah,
the next question, I've already read the question and you can also read the question. I have one question for you. A
sure,
simple,
sure.
are you happy?
Am I happy?
Yep.
I am very happy. Yeah.
So I think
I'm,
this is your question.
huh? Right. Yeah.
It's
I'm very happy. Yeah.
actually, but I think that's very important, honestly speaking. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I would suggest all the students who are here to just follow your heart. I mean, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Rest of the things will definitely fall in place.
For sure. And if you have time in your life, even if you're going through something bad, if you have time to figure it out. And when you figure it out, you sort yourself out, and then eventually that's not a problem anymore. So it's all part of living, right? So yeah.
Yeah, this period, I just came out because I thought you would like to see this also. So I have a student, he's Arman Ovla, he's from Kurdistan. He's pursuing his PhD. So during the lockdown period, as soon as it happened, all the students left and Arman was here.
Right.
So he's working with ceramics actually. That's what his areas of research is.
Hmm.
So we needed a space for experimenting. So my backyard now has been converted into a ceramic studio.
So cool.
That's where I am.
So cool.
So you can watch these works.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. So we've been. This is actually going on for firing tomorrow.
Interesting.
Experimenting with reduction process.
Right.
There are also some of the works which have been done.
Right.
This is all
very cool.
During COVID.
On this note, there is a ceramic art. There are a lot of ceramic artists in Goa. There's one called Thomas, whose work, I mean, he could see, which is very interesting. I mean, which is very. I'll forward you links of that.
Nice stuff. You can watch this.
So cool. I won that class. So cool.
Yeah, so let's
Lovely.
get Nikhilesh Tripathi to everyone. Left engineering for design, early sign of following heart. Wow. Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's how it should be.
That's a lot. Yeah.
There is another question by Shri who says, really great journey, insights, and amazing art. I think a lot of us suffer from anxiety. Okay, this is not a question.
In terms of job, etc., going with the flow and being at peace is really important. Yeah, but you also can't force it. So stick with what you're feeling right now and see what that has to say and go. Let's start there. Right? Start with yourself. And if you're feeling anxious about jobs, that's quite valid too. Think through it. Talk to people. Reach out to people. Reach out to your alumni. Figure it out. I mean, it's essentially a problem to solve, and put your head to solve the problem. You'll be able to solve it. Not a problem.
Yeah, that was the reason why I asked you, are you happy? Because, I mean, finally, yes, going with the flow, being at peace is important, but above all, it's whether you're really happy.
Yeah, true.
Because you can do a lot of things.
There have been periods of stress also. There have been periods of, oh, where's my next project going to come from? Yeah. But then when you see all that, you say, uncertainty is part of life. So it's all right.
When I joined IIT Kanpur as a faculty, I was just 26 years old.
Yeah.
And it's been a decent journey. So I still remember when I went to, fill my papers and all that. So the person who was sitting there on the other side of the table, he said, these are typical accounts people. So he was asking me, sir, aapka age kya hai aur aapka retirement kab hai and all that. So while all this discussion was happening, he told me, sir, aapko 40 saal naukri karni hai. I was really scared.
Right, of course, yeah, same place, 40 years of work.
I said, voluntary retirement wala scheme kab kitne dino ka hota hai? So he said, sir, 20 saal kar lo, voluntary retirement mil jayega. I'm completing 20 years next year.
What are you saying? Wow. Are you opting for voluntary retirement?
Oh yes, absolutely. No way, yaar. Bahut saal ho gaye, yaar. Bhagna hai.
Oh, nice.
I'll be around.
Right.
Because Ma'am is also here. Ma'am doesn't want to be that adventurous like me.
Right.
But yeah, there I am.
Awesome. Wow, that's going to be a huge change.
Yeah. Just one more year to go. Anyway.
So cool. Nice to know.
I'll be around at least, but Mrityunjay will submit his thesis next year.
Hopefully.
But you have been a great asset to have for the design program. I mean,
all of you have been great assets to the design.
Every year, he is there to save us.
Chalo, bahut hua. All right. Guys, see you, Tata, next week.
Okay.
Next week.
Who's next week?
Next week we have Nishant Rai and Arun, both from Sweden.
Arun M.
Yes, Arun M is in Sweden. Nishant Rai is also in.
Arun is still with Volvo, or he's moved to
I
something
don't
else?
know. He's about to send his bio to me, so I'm waiting for his bio to come.
Yeah,
And
after
Nishant Rai is
he
Ericsson.
joined Escorts, and then he was there for a while. Actually, started the design culture in Escorts, which is a good thing. A lot of tractors that you see in India today, kind of he really changed a lot of things. And then, of course, he moved to Sweden. And who? Laddu? Sorry, Nishant Rai. Yeah.
Yes, Nishant Rai.
Laddu hai to nahi aata.
I don't.
Anyway, chalo guys, see you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, man. Thanks, Andrew. Bye.